That was really cool. And it might just be one of the most optimal combos you can do with Yixuan and Astra. This started with a few messages from Kete, who mentioned that he accidentally got a chain prompt halfway during Yixuan's chain with Astra. And given his description, it didn't take me long to figure out what was happening. Turns out, it's actually not that hard. And with a little bit of thinking, I managed to come up with the insane combo you just saw. Very saucy. But there's quite a few things happening in this combo, so let's briefly break it all down. If you aren't familiar with it, you can trigger a chain attack halfway during Yixuan's Talisman ultimate. I have a combo guide out that I'd strongly urge you to check out if you're looking for a more detailed breakdown of the tech, but in short, to trigger a chain attack, you need to hit the enemy with a heavy attack. Some attacks, however, have disjointed hitboxes, projectiles, which hit independent of whatever action you're doing on a character after they've been fired. And this can be exploited. By timing that projectile heavy attack shortly after casting an ultimate, you can trigger a chain halfway through its animation, allowing you to swap out another character via a chain attack. Yixuan's whole basic attack, her Cloud Shaper, is such a projectile, and with it, you can get it to happen halfway during her Talisman ultimate. That lets you do something productive, like using a chain attack on a stunner to refresh King of the Summit and get some damage in. None of this is new, and in a second combo guide I've released, I cover precisely how to integrate that into an early chain burst combo, which is arguably one of Yixuan's most optimal routes. But turns out it can be optimized even further, because being able to trigger a chain mid-chain is new. I have another video that covers the logic behind it. Gosh, I really do have a lot of videos, don't I? Either way, in that video I go through how to get triple chains with Lucy, because as it turns out, her chain attack is a projectile. So by swapping out of Lucy before her chain attack hits, you can prevent it from triggering a chain. And that lets you swap back to Lucy to chain with her multiple times, back to back. This is pretty cool, but there's more to it. Back in 1.0, Yixuan had this really cool tech. By timing her EX projectiles to land halfway during her chain attack, you could trigger a chain mid-chain attack, which led to really cool combos. This was patched out, and now, if you try landing a heavy attack during a chain, the game will not register that as a heavy attack. Only chain attack heavies can trigger chains if you're mid-chain. For Lucy, because her chain was a projectile, this meant you could launch her chain attack, swap out of her, then swap back just in time for her chain attack projectile to hit. That way, her chain attack heavy was landing mid-chain attack, giving you the ability to trigger a chain mid-chain. Sadly, Lucy is the only character that can do this, as her chain is the only one that released a projectile that took long enough to hit the enemy that you could swap out and back in time. I say is and not was because Yixuan's chain is not a projectile. It's a melee hit. So what's actually happening here? Chains that are triggered by Astra aren't exactly normal chains. They're a little different. They still count for chain attack bonuses in Deadly Assault or for the King of the Summit drive disc set. They're usually indistinguishable from regular chains. But the game doesn't seem to apply that chain attack tag straight away. If you can get a heavy attack to land just as Yixuan's chain begins, if done via Astra's Quick Assist chain, then the game does not seem to treat this as a chain animation. That means the heavy attack doesn't need to come from a chain. So by applying the theory of the ultimate chain trigger tag to Yixuan's chain, we can get the same behavior, a chain trigger tag. Instead of getting Cloud Shaper to pop mid-ultimate animation, we're getting it to pop mid-chain animation. The cool thing about Yixuan's Cloud Shaper is that it's not just Cloud Shaper, it's Cloud Shaper and Ashen Ink. That's the explosion which does the heavy attack. Look at the stats for it and you see that it has both an appears and contracts. This works to our advantage, as that means Yixuan has to go through the animation for the cast as well as the explosion at the end. In fact, this is pretty important for her optimized double Auric combos. If you try to just swap out of Yixuan during a long cast, you only get the final explosion, which is nowhere near enough time to swap to Astra, use her ultimate, and then quick assist back to Yixuan. But if you begin casting Cloud Shaper, then almost immediately swap to Astra and use her ultimate, that should just about give you enough time to quick assist into Yixuan's chain just as the explosion from Ashen Ink lands. And with that, you've got the tech. Finding out the tech was step 1. Finding out how to get the tech consistently was step 2. Step 3, and the most important one, is how to actually integrate that into combos. So let's go through the combo from the start, step by step. We open with a standard early chain burst combo. It's important to note that you will want Astra to have enough energy for her quick assist prompt, or at the very least be close to it. This is because after the chain trigger off Yixuan's ultimate, we go into a stunner chain, in this case, Qingyi. Once Qingyi's chain is done, don't pick any other character and cancel instead. Astra will provide a quick assist prompt, which allows us to swap to Yixuan without needing to wait for her to leave the field. It's for this reason that Astra needs energy for it, as otherwise you just won't get the quick assist prompt. Worst comes to worst, you can try to stall by hanging on the chain select menu, but it won't always work. Without it, that means losing out on a lot of time, as you need to manually swap to Yixuan after. Although, if you have a character that can back swap, like Pan or Pokra, then that isn't necessary, as you can rely on their quick assist prompts for it. Once you're back on Yixuan, hold basic to begin her Cloud Shaper just as she finishes the quick assist. Since Astra has a 1 second cooldown on her quick assist prompt from heavies, we don't need to double swap. So as soon as Yixuan begins casting Cloud Shaper, back swap to Astra and start her ultimate. Then, with the right timing, quick assist chain back to Yixuan. And if you've timed it right, you get the prompt. From there, chain back onto Astra, allowing us to get damage in without losing any time. Better yet, because her ultimate gives up to 2 chains, you just quick assist to Yixuan a second time to get another chain. So we're not only not wasting any time in the animation for one of the chains, we're also getting a second Yixuan chain in the combo. From there, the routing is the same as normal. Use Qingming's Sky Shield ultimate, and once that's done, shortcut into Auric Array if you need the adrenaline and the extra damage. Then dash cancel into Cloud Shaper to finish off the combo. As I have M2, I do get a stun extension, but I use no M2 skills or follow-ups for this combo. It just means that you won't be able to channel the second Cloud Shaper for as long if you're at M0. Pretty good if I say so myself. Just keep in mind that there is a timing to this, and that timing isn't speed. Yixuan's Ashen Ink can be interrupted, meaning no explosion, and that means no heavy attack. So if you quick assist back to Yixuan before she started casting the second Ashen Ink, it'll get messed up. With some practice though, the timing is actually not that strict. Given the damage gains you get, certainly worth learning. And in fact, you can even do this with a double Auric combo. Whether it's actually better than the previous routing doesn't really matter since it just looks really cool, so here you go. This tech has actually been dormant for a while. Kete may have prompted me to start cooking up some combos with it, as I found it very easy to replicate it. But the first person that I know that had this happen was actually Second Logic, who let me know he got it with an Astra, Qingyi and a Co-Comp. No Yixuan needed. In fact, no ranged attack needed either. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to replicate it with any sort of consistency. Likewise, if I tried doing it with other characters that have ranged DX moves, like Yixuan, I can't seem to get the timing down, but that might be due to the fact that their projectiles have travel time that you need to adapt to. So there might be ways to develop this further with other characters, just that Yixuan so far is the only one that I've managed to use it on with ease. At the very least, this does seem to be an Astra gimmick, as try as I might, I can't get it to work with regular chains, like by having Nicole trigger a chain onto Yixuan. It might also be a timing issue though, so do give it a go and see what you get. There's definitely been some semantic satiation here with the amount of times I've said chain, but still, it's a really cool combo. As mentioned before, the combo doesn't need Mindscapes, but there are combos that do use it. And I've got a video coming up that'll cover the best routes you can take if you've gotten Yixuan Mindscapes. So if you're interested in detailed character guides, or you want to learn more about niche tech, or even just breakdowns of fights and fundamental game mechanics, then do like, share, subscribe and ring the bell. I've got more videos coming. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.